There are a lot of different mediums for us to share stories, which all have different advantages and disadvantages for each kind. Telling a story face-to-face grants tone, emotion, and a sense of wonder that can be fully used by the storyteller through the range of verbal and nonverbal communication to really engage you in the story. Books also can convey a lot of tone, emotion, and wonder, but have the advantage of being easier to produce and share. Plays, movies, or TV shows all are different and have trade-offs to themselves, respectively. Video games, though, bring something new to the table. Before, it was only the actors or the storyteller that would have either experienced or somewhat have experienced the tale. Video games allow anyone to be part of that story, and thus require much more effort than a book or movie in some regards. Just like with books, though, not all video games are created the same. An important thing in most stories is immersion, being pulled into the world to experience it for yourself. Some books and movies do a wonderful job by connecting you to the world, so when you read or watch them, you feel as if you are a part of the world while you're paying attention. Not all books and movies can do this though, and this is the same as video games. Immersion, however, is where video games can really shine, because you are already participating in the story. The question that arises, what makes a video game more or less immersive? Today I want to take the approach of analyzing one video game series that has been praised for its immersion. The Half-Life series follows a man named Gordon Freeman. He is a successful scientist who essentially has a very bad day at work. That's kind of the basis for the game. As a warning now, there will be a video playing about this game and some information shared. So if you would not like to hear anything about the story before playing it, then please check back with us after you've played the game. The two games from the series I want to focus on today will be the first and last entry, because I feel these two games highlight some important concepts about the entire franchise. You start off as a scientist heading to work, and what is interesting about the game is it takes you on the commute of Gordon to his work. In some ways, this first part of the story can seem very mundane from your average shooter. As you wait on a train, navigate the corridors of work, and eventually arrive to perform your job for the day. What's remarkable, though, is the personality that you can put into the game. You can get bored on the train, though there are a lot of cool sights to see, and you can talk to your coworkers or ignore them. You can even do a coworker a solid and hand them a toilet paper roll, or maybe something else. This level of interaction with the game helps bring the world around you to life. You can insert your personality into Gordon through actions, even silly actions. By removing limitations of what you can and can't interact with, it changes how you approach things and how you play the game. It's inviting the immersion of yourself into the game by giving you a character that doesn't talk and can approach things as you want them to approach them. To complement this, I will also say that this game is not just a simple point and shoot version of a shooter. It also includes puzzles and platforming. The specific details about this balance is something to talk more about later on, but for the sake of today, it demonstrates that the game makes you mentally think instead of just point and spray bullets. The balance of that combination throughout the game makes combat more meaningful, as now it's a life or death situation, and puzzles make sense because the world around you is collapsing, and you're just trying to find a way out. In short, the game makes you actively think, and keeps the focus on you trying to survive rather than just feeling like any other shooter going from objective to objective shooting the baddies. While the footage you see is from the newest reboot of the game, this game is very old, just a little bit younger than I am, and one of the first PC games that I ever played. The fact that few games live up to this one, which could be from my own bias, although I do have friends who will agree with me and who played the game long after it came out, both reboot and original, confirms that it did something right. Personally, I believe that the balance between levels and puzzles, shooting, as well as the insane interaction that you can have with items, just makes this game so immersive. Though, let me provide some evidence outside of my own personal bias for this. The best way to prove my points is to use the same game series, but with the latest entry, Half-Life Alyx. This is a little bit different since you are entering the character of Alyx, who does have a voice and does talk, and you've actually seen outside of this game. But it carries over so many other techniques and elements of the first game that really help prove my point. What makes Alyx so unique is that it's made only for virtual reality. And while there are a lot of games in VR now, with some being more successful than others, Alyx still remains a golden standard. And you can see it by observing just a few minutes of gameplay. While games like Beat Saber are fun since you can slash blocks to your favorite song, Alyx takes things to a whole new level. You can write with markers, play tic-tac-toe, and just interact with almost anything in the world, including pianos. This is the same as the original Half-Life, with even more interaction than before because now you're in VR, you can physically move and use your arms and hands. The most immersive VR games allow you to interact with the world on such an insane level, like in Alyx, and this brings it to life because it is like you are actually there. This is because the balance between puzzles and shooting while being in VR gives this nice, perfect balance to the game, and it allows certain elements like the horror elements to become more alive than ever. There are times that you may walk through an area where you expect at any second for something just to jump out at you. And regardless if something does or does not, you just can't shake that feeling of dread entering and journeying through those areas. This was all in the original Half-Life as well, but it's amplified since now you can feel as if everything is right in front of you thanks to VR. One can say that from the very beginning, Half-Life was meant to be played in VR. But I would argue instead that Half-Life has always been incredibly immersive. But it was just limited by the technology of its time. All VR does is allows you to be pulled more into the world that was already there. And it's just a stepping stone closer to what the game already can offer someone. Half-Life makes the game come to life, because it creates a world begging you to physically enter, as well as mentally enter. The immersion comes because it has made such a real world that you can interact with, including mundane or silly things. And those things are very much a part of our world, so it makes sense that they'd be part of any other world. When you can interact with the world on such a level as to perform these silly or mundane things, that is when you can start to blur the lines that separate our world from that of the story. Immersion is taken to a whole new level since we can put our personality physically and mentally into the game that is presented to us. We essentially can tell a story that is similar to others who have enjoyed the same game, but it will always be different and unique because of the uniqueness and difference that is tied to who we are. This is a powerful advantage that video games have over the other forms of storytelling. There are some downsides. VR in particular requires mobility, as well as the hope that you don't get sick from it. Video games in general require more effort than watching a movie does, and involve skill, which you may need to build up. That's not even talking about the expenses that modern day video games require. So, they're not the perfect medium. Instead, they are a medium that excel extremely well at immersion, and have the ability to pull someone into the world much deeper than any other medium can. Half-Life is such a good example of the power of immersion within video games. Granted, it may not be the story for everyone, but the principles of the game and the storytelling is something that everyone who makes video games should pay attention to. If making video games is what you do, then please take a look at this game and what it does right. The basic principles apply to almost any title out there. If enjoying video games is what you like, then you may just enjoy this wonderful series. The point is that video games are a wonderful medium to consume media, and has the ability to show you worlds on a scale and level that is impossible for other mediums to share. If you love stories and want to become more engaged, give video games a try, and allow yourself to enter the story and make choices rather than just observing. You might just enjoy playing make-believe once again.